All right, guys, Randy with Ace Tactical. Today we're going to be doing our shooting 101, the second video of the series. It's going to be going over grip and stance. Stance is less important, but it goes hand in hand with grip, so I'll go over both of them right now. So with grip, first thing I'm going to do before we actually talk about a proper grip and a good grip, I'm going to demonstrate 3 very common improper or poor grips, and then I'll demonstrate a proper or more efficient grip, and then we'll talk about them. We'll go ahead and do the impropers. The ones that I see pretty often are going to be a teacup, which is, you have your dominant hand, how it should be, and then your support hand comes and just teacups at the bottom. I think people get this from like TV shows or like, I don't know, movies or shit, something, cop shows where some detective or cop is like running around like this, and this is not a proper grip, you guys. The next one, this right here, where you have your thumb instead of up, creating that space for your hand, it comes down and it sits right here. This one I understand actually because it kind of feels natural, but it's not effective. So your thumb is down here, and then your support hand comes and it's squeezing the thumb against the frame to create a lot of pressure there. It's probably the most effective out of the 3 improper grips I'm about to show you, but still not an effective grip. The last one is just, we're too low on the frame. So we have a bunch of space right here between the webbing of your hand and the beaver tail, and we're shooting like this. I'm going to go ahead and get 5 shots each grip and just show you guys. Pay attention to the recoil, that muzzle flip. So first we're going to do the teacup. Okay, so this is essentially shooting one-handed. Next we're going to do, I don't even know what this is called, but where the thumb sits in the crease of the gun and then our support hand is pinning the thumb against the frame. So we'll do that next. Okay, again, decent shots. They are those ones. I didn't throw any. That one in the 8 ring is from the teacup grip. So decent shots still. But if I were to try to go really fast, that gun still recoils more than it should be. Next, we're going to go just low where we don't have enough grip on the gun. We're not high and tight on that beaver tail. And this one is, this is just as bad as a teacup if you ask me. Okay, so there's that. And now we'll do, I think we have 6, I don't know how many rounds in here, but we'll do a proper grip. And then I'll talk about what the proper grip is, but I'll just demo it first. So we're going to press out and we're going to shoot. Okay, so had a double feed. Okay, there we go. Yeah, if you see the recoil difference, and that just allowed me to take faster follow-up shots. At the end of the day, your trigger press is going to be what determines if you're actually getting hits on target. So if you haven't, go ahead and check out our trigger press video for the shooting 101. I'm going to release these in orders as to what I think is most important for fundamentals of shooting. Trigger press being one. If you haven't checked out that video, go ahead and do that first, and then come and watch the grip video. All right, guys, so ironically, when I switched to a proper grip, that was one time I had a malfunction. I had a double feed. So I'm going to go ahead and shoot the next 7 rounds with that proper grip, and just show you guys. One issue you might run into is, since you're utilizing proper grip, you might pin the slide release down, not getting slide lock, or you might override it, inducing a malfunction. But this is the best way to mitigate recoil, in my opinion. All right, guys, so we're going to go over about proper grip. So essentially, this is the frame of our gun. This back here is called the tang or the beaver tail. You have the trigger guard down here. What we want is we want to get our shooting hand, I'm right-handed, so our shooting hand as high as we can on the back of the frame, on the back of that beaver tail area, and then right here as under the trigger guard, we want to get as high as we can. That'll help mitigate recoil, because all the recoil is, this gun is cleared by the way, but all the recoil is because this slide comes back on that slide really, or the slide comes back on the frame really fast, which causes the gun to tilt upwards. Unlike an AR-15 or a rifle where that recoil goes into your shoulder, so it should be coming straight back essentially. This comes straight back, and then because our hand is right there, that's going to be the pivot point. That's going to be why the muzzle flips. So shooting hand, high as you can get it. Support hand right here, all this portion right here that's exposed is going to be for the meaty portion of your support hand. It's going to fit in here like a puzzle piece. I like to run the Cogwork slide release to get that slide up and out of the way for my support hand to sit, so I'm not inducing a malfunction, slide override, actuating the slide on accident, or pinning the slide down, not getting slide lock on my last bullet. I like the accelerator cuts on the frame because it allows me to have consistency in my grip, whether I'm coming from a reload and then up into my grip, or I'm coming from a holster draw up into my grip. It allows, I know my thumb is gonna sit right here on that accelerator cut, and the rest of my hand's gonna sit into that, that like granulated texture. At the bottom of the trigger guard, I have double undercuts to allow my hands to get higher onto the frame. But the bottom right here, you're gonna have essentially your index finger of your support hand, and you're gonna be trying to bust through the top of the trigger guard. So it's gonna wrap around like this. My support hand fingers are gonna come around my lower 3 dominant hand fingers, and I'm gonna squeeze pretty hard. I squeeze pretty hard with both my hands, but you wanna squeeze harder with your left hand. And then you wanna try to go up through that trigger guard as well. The most important part of this is going to be, if you imagine an upside down horseshoe, and then you imagine you're trying to grip the gun. So upside down horseshoe, you're trying to unbend it. So you're really flexing and torquing into that center of the bore axis. That's going to help mitigate recoil. And then if you think of like when we were kids, at least when I was a kid and I'm breaking number 2 pencils, kind of breaking it like this. You want to combine that unbending a horseshoe with breaking a number 2 pencil. I didn't think of this, by the way. I got this from Tony Cowden, Green Beret with, I can't remember which SF group. I think maybe 19th group. But Tony Cowden, this is who I stole it from. So you're going to want to be bending that horseshoe. So bending the horseshoe and breaking number 2 pencil. So I'm pushing out, and I'm also torquing my wrists inwards. Now, don't let your elbows kind of flare and do something weird like this. If you're doing this, you're doing it wrong. You don't want to do that. You still want to have your elbows kind of pointed towards the ground for that recoil mitigation, and we don't want to lock our elbows. If we lock our elbows, or we have our elbows doing something weird, what's going to happen is that recoil, so your tricep muscles are going to be a lot stronger than your forearm muscles. So if we lock out our elbows, our tricep muscles are going to override our forearm muscles, and the recoil is going to happen in your forearms. We want to have a slight bend in our triceps so we can keep our wrists straight, and the recoil should be happening with our suspension points being our elbows. We'll go ahead, send a mag through, and get some shots. So I'm building my proper grip, and I'm presenting out. My support hand is going to come. So this is just the grip. I'm not going to go over the actual how to draw out of a holster yet. That'll be some more intermediate level stuff. We're doing shooting 101. It's still going to be very beginner, very lowest common denominator teaching right now. So just building a grip. It's going to start from about right here. We're going to press out, build a good grip, and pick the trigger. So yeah, just like that. A proper grip. A compensator also helps keep the gun flat. I'll give it its credit. Radian Ramjet is a great compensator, but it's not going to work without a proper grip. And I'll go ahead and demo. So if I'm teacupping, or I'm doing that weird speed bump grip, or I'm shooting upside down. First I gotta find my dot. Whoop, bump fired it. So pay attention to muzzle rise here. Okay. Now we'll go ahead and crank down on the gun, pay attention to muzzle rise. Again, we're torquing in at the bore axis and also breaking in like we're breaking a number 2 pencil. So I'm really cranking down on the gun right now. So you can see some muzzle rise still. The compensator does help tame it. compensator, as long as you're playing your part, does a lot. However, with that being said, I would highly recommend hammering fundamentals before you go crazy with modding your gun. A compensator will only help you to the extent that you need help if you can have a proper grip behind it. All right, guys, so the next part of the video is going to be stance. Stance is not going to be as important as your grip. Grip's going to be most important, but stance will help. So if we have our gun drawn out and we're kind of just standing with our feet together straight, what might happen is, this gun's clear by the way, but what might happen is we start to shoot and we start getting in a sustained cadence, right? And if you notice, the gun might start, it'll be very subtle. It'll be enough to throw you off a little bit though, not so you're not as efficient as you could be. I get it, it's 9mm, especially with compensator, it's not going to push me back. But if I'm standing straight up, the best way to help mitigate recoil, instead of standing straight up, you're just going to have your feet shoulder width apart and then take a step forward, essentially as far as if somebody were to come behind and give you a light push on the back. You're going to step forward essentially as far as you would go to kind of stop yourself from falling. You'll hear people say get in a good athletic stance, get in a good fighting stance, whatever it is. I'm not going to say fighting or athletic stance. Some people maybe have like no idea how to fight. Some people are just not athletic at all. So you just stand with I'm right-handed. So my support side, my left foot is going to go forward. And I like to keep my right leg straight, get some bend in my left foot, or my left leg, I should say. And the more recoil mitigation I need, I'm just lunging more and loading up more on that support leg. So if I'm standing straight up, I can shoot like that all day, to be honest with you. But really loading in on a good stance is going to make it just a little much more effective. And when I need to increase the rate of fire, then really loading in on that leg is going to help that. That's pretty much it, guys. As long as you pair those two things, the biggest thing I think people struggle with is figuring out what the fuck to do with their support hand. So really grab the gun with your dominant hand. Find somebody who knows how to shoot if you need help in person. And hopefully, before you go just to anybody for shooting advice, see how they shoot and make sure they can actually shoot. I know a bunch of dudes from the military. I know dudes from other government agencies, whether it be like DEA, FBI, law enforcement, who are in those fields, and they're really not that good at shooting. Not a knock to them. It's just the training you get at that level, whether it be military, unless you go into special operations, SOCOM, JSOC, so like 75th Ranger Regiment does some handgun shooting. The various ODA teams on special forces groups, SEAL teams, they'll do shooting with handguns. But unless you fall into that upper echelon level of like a unit or an organization, then they probably aren't gonna be the best people to go to for shooting advice. So just because your friend's dad retired as a cop or your friend's dad retired as a mechanic in the Army, might not be the best person to go to for shooting advice. Not saying they can't shoot. There are plenty of dudes who are great at shooting because they seek training outside of what their job offers. But yeah, if you're struggling with figuring this out, find somebody in person and get a shooting lesson, whether it be free or whether you pay for it. There's a bunch of great shooting coaches out there. Tony Cowden, Modern Samurai Project, Cogworks. There's blanking, but there's a bunch of people out there who are great for shooting. So right here, this blank portion, get your support hand and fill in that puzzle piece. You'll know when you have a proper grip because it'll feel right. You can take your primary hand, you can move it over like this if you find that comfortable. Or what I find comfortable is I use my shooting hand and I kind of push the back of the slide to create tension back here. So I have a lot of tension back here, and then my support hand just comes up there and load into that leg, pull the trigger, pull the trigger, pull the trigger. Most important thing, if you haven't checked out the video, check out trigger press. That is the most important thing. Once you feel like you have trigger press down and you want to start picking up rate of fire, then start incorporating grip. Once you feel like you have grip and trigger press down, and you want to start working on your draw, working on reloads, working on getting through malfunctions, whether that be a double feed, whether it be just simple tap rack, whatever you want to do, those will be coming out in future shooting 101 videos. For now, I think the most important thing you can do, work on your trigger press, get a good grip, get a good stance. The next thing I'll release, not too sure, probably will be getting out of the holster and getting a good draw going. And then it'll probably be working reloads. But that's all I got for you guys. Do me a favor, leave comments down below, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Let me know what you think. Thanks for checking it out, guys. Oh, we're still recording. Most important thing, having a Gucci gun is cool and all that. Learn the fundamentals first. This is not my Gucciest gun. This is not the most expensive gun. This is the gun I train with the most, just because this was my very first platform I used to get into shooting handguns seriously. I started shooting handguns in the Army with the Beretta, the M9, switched to the M17 in the Army still. Got out of the Army eventually, got to a Glock 19X, but a stock one. Got pretty decent running a stock Glock 19X and started experimenting. Like I said, this trigger, I'm probably going to switch out for a different trigger. I'm closing in to 1,000 rounds on this trigger, and overall, not a big fan of it. Not a bad trigger, it just has some issues. So probably switching out to a different one that looks very similar, but the internals are tweaked with slightly. This is, I love this setup, Glock 19X, Radian Ramjet. Any optic really. I'm running the RMR. I think RMR, Delta Point Pro, bunch of optics out there are great. I'm starting to bleed again. But yeah, that's all I got for you guys. Ammo and training is going to be the most important thing before getting a cool gun. Get a gun, something like a stock Glock, something like a stock M&P 2.0, P320. I know a bunch of people are gonna say don't get a P320. I like the P320, whatever. Get a stock gun, get training, get ammo. Unless you have a lot of money and you can get into gun modifications right away, then I don't see why not. But if you're on a budget and you don't just have unlimited money to spend, just get a gun that's reliable and then get training and ammo. If you have money's not an issue to you, sure, get a freaking nice gun, get an Atlas, and then go get training. Who cares? That's all I got for you guys. Thanks for checking it out.